If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and another sewing video. Today I'm happy to sew along with you the little Yjona by Sewing ArtZ. Look how little and cute she is. Isn't she adorable? Now this pattern does come with 2 sizes included. This is the little itty bitty one. She's pretty tiny. I haven't made the larger one yet. We are doing this bag for our January 2023 sew along classes. So of course, if you're seeing this on the public side, the classes are over as this tutorial gets released to the public side of the channel once we have finished the classes. But if you need a slowed down version on how to make this and you want to see the larger size, you can definitely go ahead and either look at the Meet the Bags videos once that's posted, or take the class. You can do the class replays, no problem. Let me show you some of the amazing features of this bag. So there are raw edges in this bag. So my connectors have raw edges and my zipper panel has raw edges. I have edge coated all of my raw edges with Giardini Edgepaint. I love Giardini Edgepaint. First off, things I did differently in this bag. I didn't do too much differently. I did on this little one, my strap connectors just slightly different. They're the same shape. I just kind of modified it a little bit just to give myself a nicer edge to be able to edge coat with, so I get a nice and smooth edge coat line. But I show you how I do that in this video, or you can follow how she's written in the pattern if you are not edge coating. What I love about this is this very unique zipper panel. I will tell you right now, the hardest part of this bag was actually applying these rivets, because you do it once the whole bag is complete. And you feed it through all of the layers. Can you see right there? You can see where my rivet is down there. It's not that it's hard, it's just fidgety. So just take your time getting it through those seams and you will not have a problem. It is the hardest part, but not terrible. Double zipper closure on the inside. I left off the slip pocket on this one. She has instructions for a slip pocket in the pattern, but this one is just so small that I myself don't think I would use a slip pocket in a little bag this small. Other side, I do have my zipper pocket with overlay. This is super easy to turn. It is turned with a fully open bottom. It is written into the pattern, which is great. Edmana does finish bags in the same way I like to finish bags, so I just love it. And then we finish the bottom through the open bottom of the zipper pocket. What else? Again, I use Giardini Edgepaint. For all my raw edges, we have a raw edge along here. And you have raw edges along your connectors as well as along your zipper panel. And in the video, I tell you when I go and I do that edge painting. Materials I used in this bag. This one I made in the Viva Las Vegas glitter vinyls from Galaxy Customs. I mean, seriously, how cute is this? I believe these are called Wedding Chapel White and Black Dice. I think the glitter vinyls from Galaxy Customs are my favorite. Again, make sure, and they are, depending on your machine, a domestic machine-ish friendly. But yeah, just know the sensitivities of your machine. This bag is completely domestic machine friendly. Most bags are. You just have to choose the materials you're making your bag with what your machine can handle. So yeah. Now this one, because I did do it in the glitter vinyls, I would definitely probably recommend a heavy duty machine to an industrial machine to do it, or maybe choose different interfacings than I did to keep them out of the seam allowances to reduce that bulk. Now that we're talking about that, I have, as in the pattern, I've used foam as my main stabilizer. I show you a trick in this video how I reduced the thickness of the foam by quite a bit in those seam allowances. It is a handy dandy trick that Anna of Galaxy Customs taught me, and it is just genius. Yes, so I got the foam in there. My cotton pieces, I backed with EB Fuse Lite from M-Line Bags, which is a medium woven interfacing similar to SF101. On the bottom, I do have a piece of Decovil Heavy as my main bottom stabilizer, as well as I have Decovil Heavy on one of these zipper panels, which I'll show you in it. In the pattern, she puts it on both, depending what kind of vinyl you are using. If you're using a softer, lighter vinyl, I would probably put the Decovil Heavy on both of the panels. You'll see when we get there, but because I am using a thicker vinyl, I figured it was fine just to have it on the top one. So I only applied it to the one side. All of my hardware is from Emmeline Bags. Again, my Decovil Heavy is from Emmeline Bags. Fuse Lite is from Emmeline Bags. Everything else is from Galaxy Customs, including my foam. It's Pretty in Pink So Foam from Galaxy Customs. I don't know. I just love making this, and I'm super excited to make the larger size with the classes, which are beginning on January. It's actually today. Depending when you're seeing this, January 4th. So yes, you can definitely go back and see the replays of these classes if you want to join the membership side of the channel. This is in the Thursday Sew Along. I believe it is tier number 2. It's tier number 3 on the membership side of the channel. Anyways, that is all I have to say about this. How about we get to making this bag?
You're going to need some rivets, number 5 zipper tape, 4 rectangle rings, 3 zipper pulls, your nameplate, optional strap ends. I'm going to be using Giardini Edgepaint, the base paint, the base coat, color, and protecting gloss, and you will need some foam as well. You're going to need your little bottom overlay piece, 2 of those, your zipper overlay piece, 2 main exterior pieces. These are for my double-sided straps, 2 lining pieces, bottom exterior with Decovil Heavy outside of the seam allowance and the lining bottom piece, 2 zipper pocket lining pieces, and connector pieces. I'm going to be showing a different way of doing the connectors, so I have a scrap piece that fits all my connectors with Decovil Lite fused to one side of the scrap piece, and I'll show you what to do with that later, as well as your 2 zipper panel pieces, and I have put Decovil Heavy on one of those. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my double-sided straps. If you need a class on how I do that, that's down below in the description. Okay, so this is how I am doing my connectors that make it nice edge for edge painting. So I kind of trimmed my piece here so I could just fold it over. You'll see what we do here. I just kind of trimmed it up to make sure that my 3/4 inch rectangle ring will fit here nicely with my pattern piece, and just kind of altered it that way. So I went ahead and I cut my 4 connector pieces, and now what I'm going to do is I am going to put some double-sided tape on the back of these, and I'm going to put it each of these wrong sides together on top of that big scrap piece that I cut out that I've fused the Decovil Lite onto for extra stability behind our connectors. So you're going to go ahead and stick them on the scrap piece, wrong sides together. Again, this is slightly different than what's in the pattern. This I just find gives me a super nice edge to edge paint, and it is my go-to for doing connectors. So stick them all down onto this piece. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go around, and we are going to go all around these with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance top stitch. So around each connector, using the connector as a guide, an 1/8 of an inch all the way around. That's what that looks like done, and now we're going to go ahead and we are going to use the connector that we've already had cut out, and we are going to cut these nice and even. And this is why I do this when I'm edge painting, because my edges, my raw edges, are going to be exactly the same doing it this way. If you aren't edge coating, go ahead and do it as per the pattern. It's super easy how she does it as well. I've just chosen to do it this way for edge painting purposes. So go ahead and cut all 4 of those out like so. Okay, so now we're going to take our zipper panels and our connectors, and we are going to go ahead and we are going to edge paint all of those. So for our, and the curvy part of these bottom panels. So for our zipper panel, you're only going to edge coat the center rectangle and then edge coat the edges of all the other ones. So I'm going to be using 3 coats of base coat, 1 coat of color, and 1 coat of protecting gloss. If you need a class on how to do edge painting, I do have that link down below in the description. Okay, so I've edge coated here. I did not do it for the bottom one, just for the top one. And now what we want to do is we want to take some double-sided tape here and we want to put it along the long edges of that rectangular cutout of our top zipper panel piece. Keep it away if you're worried about the stickiness of the tape by 1/8 of an inch from the box so your top stitching won't get caught in that. You're going to do the same with the bottom panel. Again, if you are using a lighter vinyl, you may want to have interfaced both of these, but I didn't do that. Okay, so we've got our zipper with the pulls on it already, and we're going to go ahead and take the tape off of just the top part, and we are going to place it nice and even along that zipper. What I love about using double-sided tape here is you can manipulate it and stick it down so you have it exactly where you want it to be for a nice straight zipper. Once you have that top side nice, go ahead and do the same with the bottom side of the top zipper panel and stick it down in place. Once you have that, now we're going to trim our zipper tape here to kind of follow the shape of the zipper panel. So just kind of cutting it around like so, because we are going to want to sandwich the zipper in between our 2 zipper panels. So again, I'm just cutting the zipper. I am not cutting the exterior piece at all. Okay, once we're done with that, what we want to do is take our bottom piece now and we want to put this over top, and we want to make sure we're laying this in a way that when we are top stitching around that rectangle that we're going to be catching both layers. So I'm kind of eyeballing on the back of the zipper tape and sticking it down at about the exact same width away from the zipper teeth as I did with the top. Once you have the top part of that in place, go ahead and do the bottom part. Now I found, because I cut these out separately, that they didn't necessarily match up, but that's okay. I will even that up later along the outside because I do have a little extra overhang, which is fine. My zipper's opening and closing. And I'm just going to hold these exterior sides that aren't taped together with some clips just to make sure they do not move. And again, if they aren't lining up perfectly on those exterior parts, that is okay. We will trim that up later. The most important part is that we're making sure that where that rectangle is, that is matching on both sides. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to top stitch around that rectangle, catching all layers, and then we are going to baste the outer perimeter raw edges as well. So you're going to see me pulling my threads long so I can tie these off in the back. If you aren't pulling your threads long, make sure you do back stitch here well so your threads don't come loose. Okay, so that's done. So I'm just going to double check, especially around this rectangle, that it was caught on both sides, and it was. Phew. Now I'm going to go ahead and where I have a little bit of excess overhang, I'm going to just go and trim them up along the exterior here to make sure they match up. So I'm going to do it from the top side first, trim off any excess that I'm seeing from the bottom piece, making sure I'm following that shape really good because this is such a focal point of this bag. And then once that looks good, I'm going to flip it over and do the same to make sure that it is all even through the back side as well. Once you have it all even, you can go ahead and edge paint just around these curvy parts right here where I'm showing you. And those straight edges in the middle, you can leave those as those are going to be sewn into the seam. Okay, so now I'm going to take my exterior pieces and I'm going to find my top and bottom centers. You can put marks or small snips like I do here. You'll also see I have my little rounded overlays there and I've edge painted the curvy part. I'm going to find my bottom center of this and I'm going to put some double-sided tape outside of the seam allowances to help hold this in place while we top stitch it in place. So you're going to match the bottom straight edge of the overlay with the bottom center of the exterior main panel for both the back and the front. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to sew all along here. You can decide if you want to sew along the bottom as well, or if your materials are a little bit too thick, don't sew across the bottom like I'm doing just yet, because we can trim some of that main exterior panel out of the way to reduce some bulk. I'm not going to worry about doing that just because my materials aren't too thick and I don't think it needs to do it. But if you think yours is a little bit thick, make sure you do not do it along the straight bottom edge. Just top stitch around that curvy part. Once again, if you're worried about thickness, what you could have done is you could go ahead and just cut out some of that center of the back main panel behind that overlay. I'm not worrying about it. So now I'm going to take my exterior main panels, my exterior bottom, and I'm going to base them to some foam. Now this is a trick I'm going to show you for reducing some of that bulk in the foam. I've cut my foam slightly larger than my pattern pieces for this reason. So it gives you a little bit to grab onto for the foam to pull it away nice and tight against the stitches so you can cut the foam kind of on, I think that's a 90-degree angle, as close to the stitching as you can without cutting the exterior. So you're going to see here, look how thin that gets it compared to if you didn't trim it away. It's huge for reducing that bulk, and this is a handy trick that I like to use. Okay, so now you can see I've edge coated all of my my connector pieces. Now what we want to do to prep them for the bag is figure out which side you want to be the right side and the wrong side of your connectors. And on the wrong side, you're going to take some double-sided tape and put them some right at the very top, at that very top straight edge, like so. You're going to take your rectangular ring, put it down on it like so, and then fold it over wrong sides together, sticking it to the back. Then you're going to take another small piece of double-sided tape and stick it onto the back of that. That'll help us later put it onto our bag. Once you have all four of those and they're approximately the same size, you're going to use your pattern piece. And what I've done is I've just cut a little slit in my pattern piece right where the connector is going to match up. And I'm going to draw with my erasable pen onto my pattern piece for placement. So that line is where we're going to put the top of our connector pieces where it folds over at the hardware. So right here, right against that line, use the double-sided tape to stick it in place. And then we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from our previous top stitching. So we're going to have 2 lines of decorative stitching, as well as across and then back down, using your left zipper foot, which will help you get nice and close to that hardware. all 4 sewn on, you can go ahead, add your rivets. I've added my nameplate to my front, and now it's time to attach the bottom. So along the bottoms, find your long side centers and make little snips. Put this right sides together with our front main panel like so, matching up that center and clipping it in place. Now this is where you have to watch your seam allowances, because we kind of jump between 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 1/4 of an inch seam allowance through this pattern, but we're going to sew this bottom on with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way across. This is an amazing tip for reducing that bulk. From that seam we just sewn from each of the sides, you're going to measure in 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then you are going to cut at those marks to just not quite to the stitching, just so we could feather or butterfly that seam out and clip it in place. This is going to reduce the bulk in those corners when we go to box our corners. It'll be really, really great for your machine, especially if you're on a domestic, to reduce that bulk. The rest of the seam you're going to have flipped down towards the bottom, and you're going to go ahead and top stitch all the way across. So you can see here, if you've done it right, those little corners are butterflied open, and our top stitching has put our seam pointing towards the bottom. You're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing with the other side of the bottom and the other main panel. So this is what that looks like all done. Now we want to bring these right sides together, and we want to match up our sides like so. We're not boxing the corners just yet. We're just going to sew down each of these sides, and we are going to sew down these sides with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So that's done. Now we can box the corners, and this is super easy. You should just be able to squeeze it, open up that center side seam, and clip it in place. It should fit perfectly. Again, make sure you're opening up that seam to reduce some of that bulk. Go ahead and do the same with the other side. See how easy it squishes together and creates that perfect box corner. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew across both of those with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once that's done, just go ahead and trim these sides up to about a scant 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, especially at the corners, just to reduce some of that bulk at the corners there, making sure not to cut your threads. Once that's done, we are going to take our zipper panel. So we want to find the centers of that straight center part on both sides of our zipper panel. Make your little snip, and then we're going to put this in on one side, right sides together, and stick it inside the bag like so. And we're going to match up that center to our exterior piece and clip just that straight edge of the zipper panel. We don't want to sew past that straight edge. Once you have that clipped in place, you're going to go ahead and you are going to baste that in place with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, just like so along here. One side's done, we want to repeat with the other side. Open up your zipper, it'll make it a little easier. Match up the center with the opposite side, right sides together. And then go ahead and baste this in place just like we did with the opposite side with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. This is what that looks like. Go ahead and turn it right side out. Poke out your corner seams nicely. My corners turned out really good. I'm super happy with that. And if you want to make sure this closes, you can kind of flip your zipper panel up like so and zip it up to make sure that it works. And it'll kind of give you an idea of what the exterior of your bag is going to look like. She zips up good, and you can see how it's going to fold over. If that looks good, then go ahead and flip it back around so your zipper panel is hanging down towards the bottom. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do our lining pieces. I've already gone ahead and done my zipper pocket. If you need a class on how to do that, it's down below in the description. Make sure you leave the bottom of your zipper open. Now we're going to do pretty much the same thing we did with the exterior with slight differences. So we're going to put our bottom onto our lining piece that has our zipper pocket. And we're going to go ahead and sew across here with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're going to stop there. We are not going to sew the bottom onto the other main panel until the very end. So we're going to skip that part. And right now we are jumping over to attaching our sides and sewing down each of those sides with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, just like we did with the exterior. Okay, so this has left our full bottom open, which is awesome. We're going to take our lining wrong side out, our exterior right side out, stick the exterior into the lining through that open bottom, and match up your two top centers. So I like to do mine in 1/4 sections, so I'm going to go ahead and match up my first front, or one of my main centers, and then do the same with the opposite side, making sure you're working with the raw edge of that zipper panel. Your zipper panel should be hanging in between the layers, down and out of the way, so we don't catch those sides that aren't sewn onto the exterior. We only want to be catching the parts that we sewed onto the exterior for that zipper panel. I'm going to match up my side center seams, opening up my seam allowances to reduce some of that bulk. Just butterfly them both out, the exterior and the lining, matching up those centers. Clip in place, and then go ahead and evenly distribute the fabric in between those 1/4 sections, making sure everything matches up, and use lots of clips. I used a ton of them. Once you have everything clipped, now this is a little bit tougher. I was really glad I had a cylinder arm for this because it's way easier in the cylinder arm. If I was doing this on the flatbed, I would be sewing from the inside of the bag and going all the way around, or sewing one half, breaking your thread, and then sewing the other half. That would make it easier. If you're on a cylinder arm or a free arm machine like I am, definitely do it the way I'm showing you right now in the video. So all the way around here with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure everything was caught well. Make sure both the front and the back were caught. If it all looks good, go ahead and easily turn this through the opening in the bottom. And you can see how easy that is. I use glitter vinyl that tends to stick to itself, and it was not a problem to turn it. Pull it nice and tight, the lining and the exterior away. Make sure everything was caught at that seam. And now we can close up the bottom. So I'm going to reach in through my zipper pocket and pull out the zipper pocket. Reach in through that opening and pull the entire bottom of the lining through that opening into the zipper pocket. First thing we're going to do is we are going to match up the long edge of our lining main panel and our lining bottom panel and clip it in place. We are putting this together exactly like we did with the exterior, except we are pulling it through that zipper pocket, and what this is going to do is make it so we have a nice seamless finished seam on the inside of the bag. So once you have that straight edge, don't worry about the box corners yet, just that one straight edge, sew across there with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once that's done, we want to go ahead and box the corners, again the exact same way we did with the exterior. Kind of pinch them together, clip them in place, and we will sew across those with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance as well. It seems a little bit finicky just because we are working through a straight place, but you can see here, once you get it all pulled out, it is pretty easy. So again, go ahead and sew both of those seams, boxing those lining corners with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that that's done, go ahead and stuff that back in through the opening of that zipper pocket. Push the lining inside the bag. Now we are not going to sew up the opening in the zipper pocket just yet, because we do need to leave that open so we can kind of have a good feeling of where we're going to do the rivet. We are now to the hardest part of the bag. Okay, so push your lining down nicely, and what we want to do is, again, make sure your lining is down and nice and tight, like so. And we are going to prep this for top stitching. Again, we have not sealed up that lining pocket because we do need that open for that final rivet placement. So make sure the lining is pulled down nicely. Clip your seam wherever you can here, mostly on the sides, to make sure it's nice to prepare for top stitching. Now, if you are going to be doing this on the flatbed, I would suggest turning the bag inside out so you can top stitch from the inside of the bag. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to top stitch all the way around underneath that zipper panel. You want to make sure the zipper panel is up and out of the way, and top stitch all the way around with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that that top stitching is done, this is a good time to take a little break, go take a little walk, because this is the hardest part I found. So you can use your pattern piece if you wanted to figure out on the end of this these zipper panels where you need to punch your holes for your rivet. I'm just eyeballing it. You're going to measure down from the top seam 2.5 inches, and you're going to make a mark with an erasable pen into the seam like so. So we are pushing the rivet through the seams of the lining and the exterior. So I'm going to pull up my pocket like so and reach in so I can open up that seam with my hands. I'm just going to take my awl and stab through that seam like so. So I'm just going through the exterior currently, kind of making a hole. This shouldn't break any of your threads. I'm going to feed my first rivet post through the one side of my zipper panel and through that exterior, again opening up and getting it right into that in between that seam. Because our seam isn't open, we have to kind of open it with our hand, and that is why we have kept that zipper pocket open. You're kind of using your sense of feel a lot here. Okay, so once you have that in, you want to use your sense of touch to kind of feed that through the lining as well. So you're kind of feeling where that opening is, or that seam is. I'm going to actually go ahead, take my awl in and punch it through all layers. I found it a little bit easier. It created a hole in my lining that way as well. Mind you, doing it that way, it didn't quite get into the seam of my lining, but it was close enough. Then you go ahead and you can feed it through all the layers like so. Again, it's a little bit finicky, but it's not hard. Just take your time. I think because this one is so small, it was a little bit more finicky. Go ahead and set that rivet once you have your cap on. You can see mine is here and it's through all of the seams. You're going to do the same with the opposite side, which I have already done. Kind of push that lining in, pull your lining up, zipper pocket out, and then you can fold in those raw edges of that zipper pocket and you can top stitch that shut. And that was the hardest part. Not too bad. Put your zipper pocket lining back in, kind of push everything in place, flatten out that lining, make sure your zipper works, and then all you have left to do is put on your straps. So I've already gone and I've riveted on my straps. I'm just going to double check that everything looks good. It does. Pat yourself on the back. You've done an amazing job. She looks gorgeous. And we're done.
And that's it. That's all. How amazing was that? Again, you saw this was the hardest part to do, but it's not too bad. Not too bad at all. Yeah. Anyways, if you did like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. If you are interested in classes, make sure you check out the membership side of the channel to see if there's anything there that interests you. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can always buy me a coffee. That is linked down below in the description. And until the next one, I'll catch you guys again. Bye.